From website accessibility to creating a digital sales funnel, today we are tackling that big buzzword, user experience. But first, a segment I'm going to call Biz Kids, entrepreneurs getting their start with a little help from their parents. Our experts shared the do's and don'ts they've used with their own kids. Expert Connections starts now. Many business owners grow up dreaming of launching their first business. Some launch before growing up. Welcome to Expert Connections. I'm Julie Holton. Little kids with big ideas and guidance from experts who are here today to share their stories. John Mashney of Foster Swift joins us for our Legal Connections segment today, along with Jesse Flores of Super Web Pros. Both of you are here, not just as business owners and experts, but also as fathers who passed along this entrepreneurship gene, if that's a thing, to your kids. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
John, last year you released the funniest children's book. I actually gifted it to my nieces and nephew for Christmas, and they had a blast, especially reading it out loud to their papa. Tell us the title and storyline, John, and what made you want to write a book with your children?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'm glad the kids loved it. So essentially, it's the story of Cinderella, except instead of when the clock strikes midnight and she has to leave the ball, she runs down the steps, and instead of losing her glass slipper, she picks up her glass slipper, but she bends over and she passes gas. She toots, right? And so then she runs off in the carriage, disappears, and all the prince has to identify his true love is not a glass slipper, it's the smell of her toot. And of course, then the prince has to go around the kingdom asking all the maidens to toot, to pass gas, to find the smell of his true love. It's called Cinder Toot. And it really came from me telling a story to my kids at night to get them to go to sleep. And we never intended for anyone else to find out about this crazy, silly story. I thought my law firm would fire me when we published it. And of course, now here we are talking about it. So essentially, it was a way for me, not necessarily to make money, but to teach my kids how to be entrepreneurs and how to take a crazy idea, even a silly one, and turn it into a business. And we've used that as a way to teach our kids how to start a business, how to give from the proceeds, how to create something, how to hire people, how to work with people. It's been an incredible process, and the kids have been involved in every single step of the way.
And John, what are the ages of your kids?
11, 9, 7, or 11, 11, 9, 7, and 4. So it's crazy.
I bet, especially having, it's like ruled by committee, having, all of your children weighing in on all of these big decisions. What an experience for them. Jesse, you also created a really cool experience for your daughter at the start of the pandemic. Tell us about her business and why you helped her launch it.
Yeah, probably it wasn't nearly so entertaining. Actually, this came more out of my school is shut down, and I've got a child with a lot of energy who wants a lot of attention, and I'm trying to get work done. And realizing, this kid can also be productive. So, this started out actually as a way for me to teach her some skills, because schools were shut down. It started out as a way for me to teach her some skills in web development, technology management, all that kind of stuff that I think she's going to need to know at some point in the future. And so it started out with me teaching her some basic things like how to build and manage some WordPress websites and some stuff in Canva. And that started to spawn the idea for her to maybe do her own e-commerce store. And so that ultimately led to us starting a store called Oonicorn.com, OOHNICORN.com, where she does all the product development. She's organized all the information all the stuff that goes on there. It's a drop shipping website, but also there's some custom print on demand components to it as well. And so it was a fun way for her to start realizing, oh man, I can do these things. I don't have to be a grown-up to learn how to do a lot of this kind of stuff online. And for us to get to work together to be able to make this thing happen.
That really changes the storyline of what did you do over summer break? Like, oh, well, I launched my first business. What a cool story. Any learning curves, Jesse? I imagine that maybe there's something you learned along the way, something Gabby learned along the way.
Yeah, so many things. Patience is one of them. No, there were so many things that we learned, and I think actually one of the most important lessons that she learned, and I think is still learning it because she's got her own things now. She's trying to do it in middle school at her school. Is that at some level, product development is the easiest thing that you have to do as a business. Customer development is by far the more difficult thing, especially when you're starting off with no resources and no channels. And I think that's one of the biggest things that she's had to learn, and that she's still learning, and that frankly all of our customers are still learning, which is that providing the service is important and it's difficult, but finding customers is the harder part. And so how does that work, and what does that look like? And that's, I think, been a fun thing for her to realize and spend some time learning. And certainly for me to figure out how do I take some of the things that we learn how to do and translate them in a way that an 11-year-old can understand.
Well, and I have a feeling she can tune in later in the show for the Marketing Connections segment, where her expert dad is talking about user experience and how to, build that out on a website. John, how has this experience affected your family?
It's been honestly incredible. For me personally, I spend this time with my kids writing stories, and right now we're actually capturing the stories that I've already told them. I asked them what book should we release next, and they had a 5-minute argument about which story they like the best. By the way, Santa 2 is the next one. And
there's a theme here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
For Christmas, it'll be ready, right? But ultimately, it's been so rewarding. We said we're going to give away a percentage of all the money that comes in, and I said, you guys pick the charities, and they named 3 charities. I didn't even know they'd heard of these, but it's just incredible that they picked where the money was going to go, and we paid it together. And I said, this is what you do. We give money, we make money through our stories. We give people joy through the stories, and then we tell more stories so we can give more money away. It's just been so rewarding, and the kids have loved every single minute of it. And just when they see their names in the books, they just beam. And I think that's completely irreplaceable as a dad.
What a valuable lesson here in all of this. All right, John, I know this is an impossible question to answer in less than a minute, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What is one piece of advice for other parents who might be now thinking about launching a business with their children?
I would say do it. I think your life is short. And I think one of the great tragedies in life is that you don't get to spend the prime years of your life with your kids. Your kids never get to see you do what you do for most people. And that's what motivated me to start something with my kids, because I wanted them to be around me at a time where I'm healthy, right? I'm vibrant, hopefully. And I think there's just no better time. There's no time more valuable than right now. And, take advantage of that time if you have kids and you want to have the joy of those special moments together.
Next week, we're going to dive deeper into what it actually takes with John to launch a business for entrepreneurs of all ages. In the meantime, check out resources from Jesse and his daughter. They created a video blog to help other kids and their parents. And John also has resources all on our website. Head to expertconnections.tv. Just click Legal Connections. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. 'Tis the season to set strategic goals. And with these goals, we also need to set benchmarks and metrics to measure progress and sustainability. Our sales connections expert, Sherry Pash, is here to hone in on how to walk through this process with your board of directors. Hi, Sherry.
Hey, Julie. This is a great topic for us to talk about, these board directors. So much has changed this last year.
Absolutely, Sherry. The end of 2021, the start of 2022, we're talking prime time to really lay the groundwork for the full year ahead. Sherry, where should a board even start?
Yeah, there's so many different areas, Julie. As we start to think about those strategic sessions, there's things like membership or donor development, diversification of our members and our board. The big topic right now, strategic partnerships, non-dues revenue. Let's just unpack that a little bit. And I like to start with even just the membership, because that's the basis so often for a board of directors is a membership if it's a nonprofit. And then you just stop and think about, who are we as an organization, right? What's the makeup of our member segments and where we want to see that growth? I think the growth of businesses and companies that really support the mission of the organization and that they have goals that enhance that membership diversity piece as well. But the question I recently had started to ask at a lot of the conferences I speak at, Julie, is do our members think of us as their go-to resource when a problem arises in their business? And that's what I really challenge board of directors to think about is, do our members think of us this way? And if not, how do we start to change that?
Absolutely. An organization is only as strong as when the members turn to you when they need you. And Sherry, we know a lot of boards have gone through membership changes in and of themselves, a lot of board members coming and going, especially during the pandemic. How important is it for these organizations to really stop and look at the makeup of their own boards?
It's really key right now is, does our board represent our membership and maybe your industry or your community? Because that's very key for us to move in strategic directions. We have to have a diverse board that represents our full membership in our community or industry. So it's important to look at, are we set to grow future sustainability as well? And do we have the tools and tracking on a wide range of demographic information? And Julie, when I talk about that, what I mean is things like for your board, and do we have that diversity chart that shows the generations, right? That's a diversity piece. Race or ethnic, gender, sexual orientation, geographical. I even like to look at industry, the skill sets that are needed, influence groups, so that you have a board that has influence in the areas that you need influence in. So there's so many things a board needs to look at in diversifying themselves so that they can represent their members in the best way best way possible.
Yeah, sure. You talked on a previous episode about how sometimes boards can get that tunnel vision. You focus on maybe one aspect of the mission, and then you might be missing out on things like the makeup of the board itself, could be missing out on a key area. So changes in board makeup actually could result in some new opportunities. It's not all negative here. So what are some of the positives?
Oh, it's fantastic. The more diverse members we have, or board of members we have, the more you can talk to your members, because again, generationally, let's use that as an example. When you can bring in some of that next generation onto your board, which I know a lot of organizations have or started to do, they will bring other people like them into it. They will see that there's people that look like them, that act like them on that board. So it can offer new programming opportunities. It can open up a whole sector of an industry or in a community that the organization's not had access to before.
Absolutely. And I love that you touched on generations because, think of millennials now in their 40s, 30s, late 20s, and what they could bring, the kind of fresh perspective that they can bring to a board. And also even Gen Z, as we start getting into those younger 20s, think of a board, if their mission is really focused on raising awareness in some way and maybe social media, I tend to think of some of those younger generations can really help play a role in that, just as one example. Sherry, as a final thought here, any other areas that boards should be looking at in 2022?
I think, the word collaboration is so strong right now. It's always been a key piece for business, but right now I think strategic partnerships is really key. Thinking for a board, what does this currently mean to us as a board to have strategic partnerships? Where do our value partnerships exist at this point, kind of in this recovery stage, and think about what partnerships did they wish they'd had during the pandemic, but now into this next normal, what partnerships are really needed as they go forward. So again, it's a key strategy. We can't do everything ourselves. We need to be in partnership with others that can help us achieve the goals that our members need from us. And then also non-dues revenue, Julie. Right now, it's key that organizations are all looking at diversifying their revenues as well as their board.
Absolutely. A lot of lessons learned the hard way. Also, a lot of positives, a lot of silver linings that have come out of the last almost 2 years now. Sherry, you've also put together a series of questions to help boards get started with their strategic planning. We're going to link to that on our website for all of you watching. Just head to expertconnections.tv and click Sales Connections. Sherry, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, Julie.
User experience is one of the big business buzzwords right now. We all want our clients to have a good experience, but what does that actually look like? Let's bring in our marketing connections experts to talk tactics. Joining us is Seth Getz of Symposia Labs, Paul Schmidt from Uno Deuce Multimedia, and Jesse Flores of Super Web Pros. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having us, Julie.
Absolutely. Guys, we actually cover user experience a lot on this show. We did an extended segment on accessibility. Last week, we talked about developing strategies to really emphasize having empathy for our clients. But empathy in marketing sounds kind of abstract. Jesse, I'm going to start with you. What are some concrete and practical ways that businesses can start to implement empathy?
Yeah, that's a great question and a very large question to answer in a very small amount of time. Um, so let's talk about probably the way that is going to be the fastest and probably get you the highest result or return really quickly. And that's going to be in your hooks to get attention, right? I mean, you've been on social media, I'm sure you scroll around and most of it at some point just starts to kind of, your attention starts to tune it out. But what your attention doesn't tune out are things that speak to you. And how do you speak? How does something speak to you? Usually it tries to meet you where you're at and take you to a place you'd like to be. And so in last week, I talked about empathy and shifting the perspective from, what I do to who I serve. And this is a really great way to also think about your messaging, to think about your messaging hooks, not as what I do, but as in, I solve this problem, or how can this problem be solved, or this problem solved in this amount of time. And that is a very, very simple way that you can start to flip that script and demonstrate empathy while at the same time starting to get some attention. But there's a whole lot of other things too that reflect your empathy. Seth talked last week about the overall user experience from the time somebody shows up on your website to the time that they check out. That's all part of user experience. But I would take it even one step further, and it's even how do they do business with you? What is the enrollment process like? What is the onboarding process like? Back to the online, I would look at things like your ADA compliance. That's all about user experience. Is your website accessible to anybody, sighted or not? I would look at things like your website sitemap. Does that reflect information that your users or your customers would find valuable? And by the way, pro tip, the more information you have on your blog, whenever you get asked that question a million times, you just send the link and it answers that question for you much more productively than having to have the same conversation over and over and over and over and over again. And that also brings me to the last part, which is your content marketing plan is fundamentally about user experience and about empathy, because ultimately you create content for your customers, for your users, for your prospects, and it makes it much, much easier to do business with you. So tip of the iceberg, those are a couple of my favorite tips.
Bottom line, our clients really want to make sure that we understand them and where they're coming from, what they need from us, and not the other way around. Seth, how do we ensure that the user experience that you want to give your clients is in fact that user experience that they receive?
We make so many assumptions around user experience because we take it from our perspective, from our viewpoint, from our eyes. And there's a great old song, I think it was sung by Elvis Presley, about walk a mile in my shoes. Before you abuse, criticize, or accuse, walk a mile in my shoes. And saying, okay, can you get that? Can you switch your perspective around to my perspective on this? And the same thing, take their user experience. If you've got an idea in mind, because we all want them to have a great user experience, but can you switch it around to walking in their shoes and walking through that process? And instead of making assumptions about, hey, you're going to see the world the way I see the world, you're going to see this campaign the way I see it, take it from their perspective. Realize that there is different people, they have different needs, different ideas. We've got to make sure it works for them from their perspective. That's how you get them a consistent experience that matches up.
Absolutely. We're working with Jesse's team on a website project right now where the website is beautiful in design, but as it's been implemented and we see how people are actually navigating, it's time for some changes because it's not quite what we had anticipated. I know all of us do that with our businesses. Paul, how does user experience work when it comes to video? Does it mean that the video just simply has to work or just create video? There's a little more complex than that.
Well, as you know, when it comes to creating content, it seems like video is the most engaging form that everybody goes to. And with the platforms having a video aspect to it, most of the platforms that you use, and also the fact that you have the ability to shoot video and create video on the fly in the palm of your hand with this technology, there really is no excuse not to have a way to display or share your story, but it's about how to do it strategically and build upon it with what you're trying to tell your folks, and also how you're trying to reach them. Plus, knowing the nuances of when to use what and where. It can really be overwhelming. Take YouTube, for example. We always say that there's a couple different ways to really use YouTube for the user and the experience for the user. One is to use it as a library to gather all your stuff and have it go out. That is one way. Or to use it as a platform. Or what I like to say is either you're going to use YouTube or you're going to be a YouTuber. What that means is like you're going to use the YouTube ecosystem as it is, as the platform where you want people to come. And that therefore you're using all the tools available, but that's all about how you want to reach the user, where you want them to go, how you want to display that, and also being strategic with these tools and platforms to be able to share that story appropriately, creatively, but having as part of the whole ecosystem within your business, your organization, how you want to use that and how you want to get people to engage with that.
In fact, YouTube is so important. We're all YouTubers now, right, guys? The show actually also streams on YouTube. So if you're watching us there, drop us a comment and we'll respond back to you. This is a great place to pause the conversation, but we have more to unravel here. Next week, we're going to dive deeper into the user experience, talking about how to craft that storyline, how to actually write the content and create the visuals for this message that's all a part of the user experience. In the meantime, to hear more from our marketing experts, head to our website, expertconnections.tv. Just click Marketing Connections. For our dose of heart and soul this month, we're focusing on family, highlighting stories of women in leadership. Here's She Leads Michigan founder Liz Doyle with our Heart and Soul Connections.
Thank you, Julie. I'm here with Dr. Linda Lee Tarver, a well-known personality around Lansing, Michigan, and even over the United States for all of her television appearances. We know and we've seen her, but not many of us know her story. So we'd love to spend a few minutes with you today, getting to know you better.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you seem to have worn a lot of hats in your lifetime. Could you give us a thumbnail sketch of some of your positions?
Absolutely. My first job was at age 16. I was a switchboard operator. So that kind of dates me a little bit here. But I worked for Meyer Thrifty Acres. That too also dates me. I was an undercover security, and I worked in management there. In my career as the state of Michigan, I've worked a variety of jobs, and to include as a senior project manager, a project assistant, an assistant to the Secretary of State, a legislative and policy analyst, and most recently, as my retirement, I retired as community affairs director and election integrity expert for the state of Michigan. I was also appointed to the Michigan Civil Rights Commission, and my claim to fame, however, is as Sunday school teacher. So I've been teaching Sunday school in my careers throughout, preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. So it's been wonderful.
That's wonderful. Now, you're not just one doctor, you're two doctors. So what are your doctorates in?
I have a doctorate in theology and a doctorate in education. The Lord has just been putting on my heart to teach the Word of God and to teach people and to value education. It is so important that we have a quality education and a quality education to be fully informed on what the Lord is doing. So those two doctorates are near and dear to my heart.
That's wonderful. Now, you often share about your large family, and in particular, your mother's role in influencing you and guiding you in your journey to understand your gifts and abilities. What did that look like?
Well, I tried basketball. I was somewhat tall in my school age child, and I tried basketball. People thought that I would work out on the basketball team, but my nails got in the way because I've always loved my nails. And so that did not work out for me. But my mother, I believed, heard from the Lord concerning her daughters. And so she pointed me in a direction of debate. So being the youngest of 10, I had been debating all my life at that point. And so she pushed me into an area of public speaking and debate. One of my sisters became a nurse. She put her in programs that fit well with that. My sister, Jeanette, she was engaged with dance lessons and with music lessons and voice lessons. And so my sister is a psalmist. She praises the Lord, and she's a choreographer in addition to her day job. So my mother heard from the Lord. She voluntold me to do a variety of different things, to include narrating a fashion show. And she put me out on front, to do those things. And so my fear was reduced as a result of what I believe my mother had just placed on her heart, to look at her children individually and put them in the right place.
I know, I love that. That's what I love about churches. That's a great place for our young people to learn how to share their values, to speak, to develop their talents in a sort of non-judgmental place. Now,
Yes.
What encouragement would you have for a young person watching today? What would you say to them in regard to their future? What kind of things would you say they need to focus on?
So my children asked me, Mom, what am I good at? And so I had to go before the Lord and do what my mother did and point them in directions. My son is a prolific writer. He's excellent at that. And he went into communications. My daughter is, like myself, a great speaker, and she's a great presenter and a teacher. And so I would say to any young person, listen to your mother and allow the Lord to speak through her, or your father, but definitely listen to your mother and allow the Lord to just speak through them and nurture the gifts that they see in you. And be led by that. That is what I would encourage the young people to do. And I would encourage them to try things, even if they're not comfortable, to put their trust in it and just be young and try different things and get out of your comfort zone, because it does allow you to develop and mature and to grow.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Linda Lee Tarver, for joining us today. So, Julie, back to you.
To hear more from the women of She Leads Michigan, head to our website, expertconnections.tv, and click Heart and Soul Connections. Thank you for joining us for Expert Connections. I'm Julie Holton. We'll see you back here next Monday. Until then, find us online at expertconnections.tv and on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. We'll see you next week.
Expert Connections is executive produced by M Connections Marketing Agency in collaboration with Foster Swift Law Firm. Strategic Solutions for Growth. Super Web Pros, Symposium Labs, Uno Deuce Multimedia, and She Leads Michigan. A special thank you to our Style Connections partners, Polka Dots Boutique, The Standard Spa, and Beauty by Wilder. Visit our Style Spotlight online at expertconnections.tv.